Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called You Could Afford. This takes place in Europe, so US rules may not apply. This driving student came from a modest background, went to law school and ended up at a good firm, started dating a colleague there and eventually got engaged to him. This is where our story starts. The guy's family was old money rich and they told his bride-to-be that they would buy her a car of her choice as their wedding gift, so she went car shopping. What we need to know at this point is that she didn't look like a big shot lawyer outside the office. Her free time style, as it was described to me, was something like a goth punk mix. So she went to a car dealership in her hometown. Nothing fancy, but she wasn't there for a Ferrari. She just wanted a nice new car and figured she'd spend the money where she grew up. So she walked around the dealership looking at a couple of new Mercedes when a car salesman walked up to her. He looked her up and down and said condescendingly, "Go look at cars you can afford, girl." She left and she was pretty upset. When she told her future in-laws, they were sympathetic. But they also pointed out that they would like to get her a better car than the dealership in question had for sale. They suggested she pick a super fancy car. The super fancy car had to be imported from the US, so it took a while until the lawyer got her wedding gift. When she finally had it, she drove it to her hometown dealership. This time she didn't look like a goth punk. This time she dressed up. She even wore long gloves. She walked into the dealership and asked to speak to the boss. When she was led into his office, she put her vehicle registration certificate on his desk in front of him, without saying a word. The boss went a bit pale. He thought she wanted to sell him this car, which he couldn't afford to buy from her. "No," she said, "I don't want to sell my car. I came here because I bought it following your employee's recommendation. I love this car and just wanted to thank him." Now the boss was confused, so she added, "You see, he told me to look at cars I could afford, so I did and I got this one." The irate boss asked her to point out the employee in question and started to tear into him. He wasn't an employee there for much longer. The next story is called Was It Enough This Time? My colleague and I used to survive our boring desk job by occasionally treating ourselves to the local shippy, often on a Thursday or Friday when we needed a pick-me-up. This was in the north of England, so I'm talking fish, chips, pies, sausage, gravy, etc. Decor from the 80s. The owners, simple, straightforward, humorless working folk. Usually I get fish and chips with a bit of salt and ketchup. I never liked vinegar on chips as I find it too acidy and makes them go all soggy. My mate, however, loves vinegar on his sausage and chips, and just as we are walking to the chip shop, he tells me how they never put enough vinegar on them. I say to just ask for more then. And he says, "Fine, I will." We go in and order, and the girl behind the counter plates them up in those little polystyrene trays. She asks if we want salt and vinegar. And my mate asks, "Yes, can I have ludicrous amounts of vinegar please?" Cue malicious compliance. The girl unquestioningly picks up the vinegar bottle and starts shaking it over his chips, looking him straight in the eye the whole time. To this day, I don't know if she was flexing on him in a call my bluff kind of way or just humorously and obediently carrying out his request. She adds 10 seconds worth of vinegar and is still staring at him for confirmation that it's enough. My mate is either too proud or too awkward to tell her to stop, so he just stands there looking on as his meal is slowly ruined. Meanwhile, the little tray is slowly filling up with vinegar. Finally, after 15 to 20 seconds of vinegarization, she stops and puts the bottle down. My mate says thanks quietly and watches as his tray of food, now close to overflowing with vinegar, is wrapped up and passed to him. At this point, I'm trying not to die from laughter. We go back to the office and, inevitably, the vinegar has soaked through all the paper wrapping the meal. So my mate spends most of his lunch break trying to peel soggy strips of paper from his food. They give you enough vinegar this time? Just about. The third story is called Letter Gradings. I had been working a technician job for the small company when I was asked to do a normal, usual, nothing special job. During the course of this job, I was asked by my boss to send a picture of my work. Our relationship was already very strained by this point. In this picture, I included my work and the letter I was working on because I wasn't going to move it just for a picture to my boss. As I arrive back at the office, my boss calls me in to his desk with a paper to sign saying I performed an unsafe work act. The act in question was that I used a customer letter, something that we as a company had done for the 4 years I was there, including this very same boss. He talks to me about letter grades, how I shouldn't have used the letter since I didn't know its grade and how much weight it can support. And then he sends me home early and do not come in the next day as a suspension. I was angry, but luckily I know union reps from other companies that handle safety regulations, so I get a hold of the official government booklet and begin my day of study. The very first day back, my boss again asked me to take a company letter and go do a job. I look at every company letter and identify they are all classified as grade 3 household letters. None within grade to support my weight of 250 pounds, let alone my tools. I break the news to my boss. Turns out none of the jobs he wanted me to do that day could be done, since he needed to instead provide letter training that he failed to provide when I joined the company, and find a few very expensive A1 grade letters. The next story is called Use That Strap. This wasn't me, but a fellow worker who managed to get us all a few hours of work. Working for a Japanese company, they had lots of health and safety procedures and lots of managers. Said worker had to use straps to lift a counterweight onto the assembly line. Now, these were color-coded, and every month they were all swapped out for inspection. This being the first of the month, we moved on to a new color, orange for convenience. Now, the worker took the new strap and noticed damages to the stitching, informed his manager and was told to use last month's straps for the time being. Now, the thing about this kind of company is there's usually a couple of managers, so now our second manager came over and told him he should be using orange. He told the manager about that damaged strap, but was told to do as he is told. So all swapped over to orange, did as he was told. He lifted the weight to a few inches off the ground, told everyone to step back and wait. Less than a minute later, that strap gave away. But now, since it's an accident on the line, investigations had to be made, interviews, witnesses. All in, we had 4 hours of downtime and a manager that was suspiciously never seen again. The last story is called Prove It. When I was 19 years old, I used to work for a grocery store chain in the southwest US. I was a baker, meaning I had to wake up at like 12 AM to get to work and start baking. Usually alone for about 4 to 5 hours until the rest of the crew popped in. We had recently had one of our managers, who we all liked, get transferred out from our store. She was replaced with a woman who was, for a lack of better terms, a giant jerk. Micromanage, stare over your shoulder, check over your work, look at your clocking in, timing how fast you did something. Just an absolute nightmare. I had already been working there for 3 years without incident. But just within her first week there, she wound me up for taking 2 additional minutes on her break, which I actually got stuck helping a customer, but this didn't matter to her. We also had a protocol that if you were sick, you had to get approval from your manager to leave your shift, and only if you had a replacement. This basically meant you pleaded with other co-workers to come to take your shift. The issue is, as the baker, the only other person who could take my shift was, you guessed it, the manager. So one fateful morning I come in and I can already tell something is wrong. I'm sluggish, my head hurts and I feel so weak. Not to mention I got a bad case of cold sweats and my stomach is not feeling great. I'm about 2 hours into my bake, really trying to just do anything without having to call my manager, but I knew there's no way I'm going to make it another 6 hours. So I call her and she picks up. Don't tell me you are sick. I can tell she is sleepy and trying to get out of this. Yeah, I'm really sorry, but I don't feel too good. Can you take over? I say this in a normal tone, not some embellished sick tone. You don't sound sick at all. You just sound tired. Get an energy drink and I'll see you when I come in. She says as her voice trails off as she is hanging up on me. So there I am, sick as a dog, with no backup and no way out. I'm 19 and I don't want to lose my job. So I persevere, just going through the motions and doing a terrible job at baking. I just can't even focus and now I have terrible pain in my abdomen and I'm nauseous. Eventually my other baking staff comes in and they start commenting that I look like I'm dying. They try to help out while I try to sit back and regain my energy. My manager strolls in a few hours later, fully rested and ready to bust everyone's balls from the look of it, specifically mine. See, this is the type of commitment I want to see. This is how an adult works, she says, looking at me with a condescending look on her face. I'm fighting back every urge to tell this lady to screw off, but again, 19 years old, need a job. So I tell her I have to go because I'm feeling super sick. She says, "You don't seem sick, you got another 2 hours in your shift, you can make it," and I and my coworkers are just stunned. I tell her I really am sick, and by this time my body is just wanting to give out. She looks at me and says, "If you are really sick, prove it." Yeah, you know how this is going to go down. So I just let it go. Every single muscle and cognitive control I had over my body was gone, like someone turning on a fire hose. And right in the way of it stands my manager, who takes it all. We are talking full body coverage. She is visibly both appalled and upset, but she can't say anything unless she wants my chunky discharge to seep into her mouth. She storms off, and I call my sister, who works in the same plaza, to take me to the hospital. I find out that it was just in time, as this was really serious. Dying at a bakery of frozen goods, not my thing at all. Many days later, after recovering, I show back up to work to find out that my manager was no longer at that location. She had been moved to another store, so they told me, and that new protocols were being made about backup bakers and sick leave. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.